following is a presentation of Learfield IMG College. From the Georgia Southern Sports Network, powered by Learfield IMG College.
Wings up, Eagle Nation! Touchdown, Georgia Southern!
This is Inside Eagle Nation, your all-access look into Eagle athletics.
Taking a look through all the other action in Georgia Southern athletics this past week. A lot of road action. A lot of teams hitting the old I-16 out of town.
Getting on the steel horse and taking us to parts north, south, west, wherever. Can't really go too much farther east.
Now let's return to the Learfield IMG College studios. Here are your hosts, Colin Lacy and Danny Reed.
That's a fact, Jack.
Welcome into another edition of Inside Eagle Nation, episode number 154. I know we update it every week, but I still second-guess myself every time I say it. But it is episode number 154 here of Inside Eagle Nation. And we are live here from Hanner Fieldhouse, down in the basement, the bowels of Hanner Fieldhouse, but newly redecorated. We talked about last week. Steve Masterman Smith helping us out with some of the old jerseys of Georgia Southern.
So that means 2 weeks from now, when we're getting ready to talk about the BYU game,
156,
we will have had 3 full years worth of podcasts.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about it like that, but yeah. It's not 154 consecutive. Had to take the 3 months off whenever COVID hit and we were furloughed for 3 months, and then had another week, one other time.
We had our breaks.
Yeah, we had one other time where...
We had 2 unplanned breaks, but the more of these that we do and the higher that number gets, the more stories that we share from... Well, some of these have been multiple tellings, but we've also been able to uncover some more things, and we've got some stories I'm sure we'll pick up when we go to Texas State next week and catch up.
It's funny how for
Shields, all them.
Some of these... that every time we tell it, it's a little bit different.
Well, either we find something that happened differently, or we don't remember it the right way, or it just, like when Terry tells a story.
Yeah.
It's never the same way 2 straight times, but it's always a great story.
No doubt. No doubt. A lot to get to on this week's edition of Inside Eagle Nation. We'll recap the Georgia Southern football game against Georgia State this past week for homecoming. Look ahead to Georgia Southern hosting the highest-ranked team to come into Allen E. Paulson Stadium as number 21 Coastal Carolina will be in Paulson Stadium this weekend. 6 o'clock the kickoff for Salute to Service. Also have Joe Cashion, the voice of the Chanticleers, stopping by to catch up with us. Going to be good to see Joe, not only today, but this weekend.
One of my favorite people in this world.
He is somebody we've talked about a lot, and every time I think of Joe, I think of a couple of years ago. I think it was when Hurricane Florence hit.
18.
Coastal Carolina was ended up being at Campbell.
For a midweek game.
He wasn't able to do it because he's part of the National Guard, Army National Guard, and he had to go and serve and help with the evacuation and the kind of aftermath of Hurricane Florence coming through South Carolina, and so he wasn't able to do that game, but it was a well-excused absence, I think.
And bringing it full circle, he just retired from the National Guard.
I didn't realize he had retired.
He just retired.
I missed that.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to cover that in a little bit later.
But he's about as good as it gets.
No doubt. He is one of the best people that we come across. But as we dive through this week inside Georgia Southern Athletics, Georgia Southern women's golf will finish up their fall portion of the schedule coming up next Monday and Tuesday in Macon at the Mercer Invitational at the Brickyard Golf Club. We will update you on that. Next week, they will be in action Monday and Tuesday again of next week to wrap up the fall portion. Basketball going to get started here in the next week or so. Men's basketball getting started against Ball State next Tuesday. We'll have a full preview of what basketball looks like next week.
They're actually participating in a closed-door scrimmage right now in Hanner against Queens, a really good Division II program out of Charlotte. They're one of the best, if not the best, D2 programs in the country, so I'm curious to see how that goes.
We'll let you know as much as we can.
But in closed door, that means just the teams, coaches, support staff, and officials. That means no attendance from anybody. It's almost like a COVID game.
Yeah.
Almost like what we had to see when we went to Davidson last year for the non-conference.
That was weird.
Now, they did have a couple of alumni there, but this is when they say closed door, that means nobody in.
Women's basketball will host Allen for an exhibition on Thursday night in Hanner. It's a 6 p.m. tip, open to the public, free to the public. Anybody that wants to come out and see Anita Howard and her company will be able to do so Thursday night, 6 p.m. tip, and then they will open the season at Auburn Thursday on the November 11th.
That's the difference between a closed-door scrimmage and an exhibition. Yep. You can fly the doors open. In fact, I was talking with Matt Stoltz yesterday. They have an open-door exhibition this evening out in Jonesboro, and they're actually doing it for the radio network.
At the Convocation Center?
At the what used to be known as the Convocation Center.
Oh, it'll always be the Convocation Center.
Well, you always remind it when you give me my boards, too.
Oh, no doubt.
But I know it's First National Bank Arena. We've been there 4 years because the weird scheduling, we have not been out there. They built the hotel since.
That's true.
I mean, we saw the hotel. We were out there for baseball last year, but we have not stayed in the hotel. I would imagine that's where we would stay if we had a chance to go out there. But looking forward to getting back inside of the Convo for the first time in 4 years. That's weird to say when you're talking about a conference matchup. Almost feels like it's SEC a little bit, where you don't get a chance to go see everybody as much as you want.
I know it's November 1st. It just doesn't feel like it's basketball season yet.
It has started to get colder.
Yeah, thankfully. Good pullover weather.
The leaves are changing colors, and the ones that are falling.
So it is fall, I guess.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll be 95 tomorrow, though.
Yeah,
That's how the weather works down here.
Women's soccer will open up the Sun Belt Conference tournament over in Foley, Alabama. They got the first round bye like we talked about last week, so they didn't have to play today. They will open on Wednesday, and it was a little bit finicky how the conference slate ended up, and so they faced the number 5 seed. We knew they were going to be the 4 seed facing the 5 seed, but we thought they were going to be taking on Georgia State. When the bracket came out, somebody a lot smarter than us apparently said that no, it's going to be Coastal Carolina as the 5 seed, so they will face Coastal Wednesday, a 7:30 kickoff from Foley. 7:30-ish.
Well, that's a team that beat them 4-1 at Eagle Field, gave them their only home loss of the season, so there will be even more of a reason to be motivated, and we knew that they were going to surpass that preseason ranking. Now getting into tournament play, you'd like to see the same kind of effect that it had on Georgia Southern Volleyball last year when they won their first ever tournament matchup, taking down Troy, and you would hope that with the veterans that they've got on that squad, with Marcelo, with Maddie, with Ellis being first-team All-Conference, they have 3 All-Conference for the first time since joining the Sun Belt in 14. You would hope that all of those experiences are going to give them what they need to make a charge at a championship.
So they are on their way as we speak down to Foley, Alabama. I think they left about an hour or so ago.
They bus?
Yes, they did.
I was kidding. Wow, okay.
No, they did.
Okay. Keep it rolling, I guess.
They did. Men's soccer had a tough one on Sunday against West Virginia. Again, West Virginia started out in the top 5 of the national rankings. They are now receiving votes, but they fell to the Mountaineers 5-0 on Senior Day this past Sunday. They will have one more match in the regular season in Atlanta against Georgia State on Thursday. That's a 7 p.m. kickoff for all the Atlanta alumni. Can head on out to what they call Panthersville over there. You would feel so inclined to see Georgia Southern men's soccer take on the Georgia State Panthers to finish up the regular season.
There's something we can tie in regarding men's soccer because it relates to some of the news that's come out over the last week and a half or so, and it's not completely out, but welcome to Southern Miss, to Old Dominion, and today to Marshall, officially welcomed to the Sun Belt Conference. They'll be joining no later than July 1st of 2023. And the reason we bring it up is we know there's still one more team. We don't want to jump the gun. That's probably going to happen. We won't jump the gun. We'll let that take care of itself. But Keith Gill, Sun Belt Conference Commissioner, says that the Sun Belt will be bringing back men's soccer.
And you look at, we were talking about it with Aaron and a couple of different people about what that looks like. That could be a really good Sun Belt Conference soccer for the men's side. Marshall is the defending national championship on the men's soccer side. You've got, and with Georgia Southern, Georgia State coming back, West Virginia was already leaving to go to Conference USA. If that leaves the MAC with only 3 or 4 teams, so you might absorb that. There's still a lot that can unfold as far as conference realignment, what's going to happen to Conference USA. Do some teams jump from Conference USA to Sun Belt Soccer? There's a lot that can happen, and I think it's going to be pretty exciting as far as men's soccer and the Sun Belt's concerned.
And it doesn't automatically mean that Georgia Southern and Georgia State are going to leave the MAC and come back to the Sun Belt. It would just make a whole lot of sense if they did. Now, they still need to add the sport, which would probably take place sometime around 23. So it's feasible that it could happen, but then you've got to deal with, okay, just got into the MAC, but we've had conversations before regarding Texas State, UT Arlington, that those two spent 1 year in the WAC before moving conferences back to the Sun Belt. So it is something they may have to deal with, but it just seems that if everything else is in the Sun Belt outside of Rifle, which still is in the SoCon, it would make too much sense to not reinitiate with the Sun Belt, but we'll see what happens.
And especially when you've got all these teams that are more of the geographic footprint that you're looking for, and not going to Ohio and all these places that are a lot more difficult to get to.
Buses, not planes.
No. Bingo.
For money's sake.
Georgia Southern volleyball fell in both of their matches 3-0 against Texas State on Friday and UTA on Sunday. They will hit the road for the final time of the regular season at Coastal on Friday, a 6 p.m. first serve, and then at Appalachian State on Sunday, 12:30, the first serve on that one for Georgia Southern volleyball. And then they will return home to finish up the regular season the following weekend. But it was Homecoming 2021. It was a fun week. Before we dive into the game, which wasn't necessarily as much fun as the week was, you got to MC the parade on Thursday?
Friday.
Yeah. That was close.
Parade was at 4 o'clock, so we could answer the age-old question, what time was the parade?
Didn't need the Coca-Cola or anything.
Didn't need the Coca-Cola or anything. That was, a year ago they had to do it virtually.
Yeah.
But I did it in 2019. It was enjoyable, and I didn't realize it was a thing that the theme this year was Eagles in Outer Space. And apparently the students had been wanting this for a long time, so they didn't have a vote this year. They just said, all right, look, we're not going to do this anymore. We're going to give you what you want. And there were some spaceship-themed floats and with representations for the homecoming king and queen and all the court. And it was nice. It was really nice to have that kind of event where we could be outside, we could be around each other, and we're still dealing with some of the things from before, but it was nice to not have to worry about that. Now, there were people wearing masks, and I think that probably all going to have to wear masks in some way, shape, and form for, maybe for the rest of our generation until something else gets figured out. But it felt cool, and thankfully the rain stayed away, and everybody that needed to get through got through. They had the celebration at Sweetheart. Baseball had its Fall World Series over at J.I. Clemens. The Meerkats came back to win the final 2 games to take down the Pepitos, so they'll get steaks. Pepitos have to get hot dogs. But yes, the homecoming parade, getting back to your original thought, was very, very nice.
Now, I know the parade route goes from, I think, the rack and all the way through campus and then ends at Sweetheart Circle. Where are you stationed for all of this?
We were on the doorstep of the Pittman building.
Okay. So you're kind of at the end of the parade.
So I was steps away from Dr. Kyle Marrero's office.
Look at you.
And
moving on up.
I felt regal. It was wonderful.
On Saturday, it was Georgia Southern. Georgia State ended up being a 21-14 victory for the Panthers of Georgia State. It started off, and you and I talked about it throughout the week, it's always a tough, hard-fought game whenever these two get together. It doesn't matter what the record is for either one of them. But it started out relatively well for Georgia Southern. It's a 7-0 lead at halftime, and if you would have told me it was just one touchdown in the first half, I probably would have told you were nuts before the game.
Yeah.
But it kind of goes to show, you brought it up during the game, how Coach Roos talked about it last week with us, how the offense and the defense feed off of each other so much. And it was really the defense kind of taking the bull by the horns and got the 7 points on the board on the offensive side.
Gave up 115 yards in the first half. And you went into the break thinking that may have been as well as the defense had played all year. And you could go back to Louisiana possibly. I know that the Gardner-Webb game was a victory. I know that the Arkansas State game was a victory, but I think that we could both agree that the performance wasn't particularly sharp against the Run Bulldogs to begin the season, and Arkansas State is just a mess. And I don't like putting it that way, but they really are.
Yeah.
They're 1-7. They've got a lot of things to work out. I do think that Butch Jones will ultimately get them on track. But looking back at this, Georgia Southern did a lot of things well. They had a 100-yard rusher, a 100-yard receiver. They'd struggled on third downs. They were 7 of 13. They were sustaining drives.
Yeah.
there for a couple weeks could not stay on the field. You can't feature all that talent if you're 3 plays and out half the time. But I would liken what happened to, since we're now in Thanksgiving season, I would liken it to spending all day making a delicious Thanksgiving meal and then not eating it. Because 2 interceptions in the red zone. Yeah, how sad did that sound? Because that's what it
just
felt
awful.
like. But it was 2 red zone interceptions, getting stopped on 4th and goal at the 1, all of those drives that went at least 6 plays, and all the Eagles had to show for it was 7 points. But leave it to Anthony Beck to swing momentum a little bit. 4th quarter, he bombs a 63-yard punt, pins them at the 9. They only punt out to the 42. So the Eagles were beginning in plus territory, needing a touchdown, and it didn't take them that long on a 3rd down run. Logan Wright finished it off. It was 14-14 with 1:39 left. But the cumulative effect of what they had lost earlier that game was catching up to them, and it finally burned them in the final 30 seconds. C.J. Wright got hurt, looked like a pretty severe left knee injury, didn't have a complete update from Coach Woodley after the game or earlier today at his press conference. It just didn't look good, and typically when they have to put the wrap on and you have to leave on crutches, it reminded me a lot of J.D. King last year against Troy. Nothing has been said as of yet. CJ's not going to play this week, though. And then the scary spot with Tyler Bride. Look, there was 9:45 left in the 3rd quarter for way too long.
Yeah.
Time stopped, and you had fans from both sides just eyes open, quiet as could be, wanting to know what was going on with Tyler. Because he went to Greater Atlanta Christian. He's from that area. There's probably a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
He goes low on the tight end Aubrey Payne, and then you could just tell right away he was out. Knocked himself out, and they rushed onto the field, brought 2 separate carts out, got his jersey and shoulder pads off. Thankfully, he was able to regain consciousness, and even more thankfully, Kevin Whitley telling us it was just a concussion. Could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
He's not going to play this week either. The hope is that he does return this year, but the way that Coach was as optimistic as he was, I think that you're going to see Tyler Bride again at some point this year. But now with that secondary that was already strapped, with Darrell Baker missing the last 2 weeks, Canteen out for the year because of the torn pectoral, you're going to see a lot of Najee Thompson. You're going to see a lot of Deontay Bembry, and you might see some even younger blood that have spent the last couple of months learning this place, and now it's time to do it.
Yeah, and before we get too deep into this game, got to send a huge shout out to the athletic training staff for Georgia Southern. Russ talked about it during the game. It was something that didn't look as serious as it was as the play happened, and I know the athletic trainers are a lot more well-versed in all of this, but there are signs that you see that you need to go out quick. And Brandy Klaus, Bryce Sawyer, Daniel Lindsay, the entire athletic training staff for Georgia Southern was out in a matter of seconds and did everything that they needed to do. And it's not a easy task to get a grown football player on a backboard without moving him a whole lot. But they did a fantastic job along with the medical professionals from the local Statesboro area to get him to the hospital. But a scary situation that could have been a lot worse. But like you said, Coach Whitley talking about it after the game with Russ and then earlier on today, just a concussion. It looks like Tyler Bride's going to be A-okay. Saw his folks on Twitter putting it out as well, that it looks like everything's going to be really good with him, and that might be the best news of the weekend. For our support staff, you don't like to say how much experience you have in those situations, but for somebody like Brandy Klaus that's been here for so long, she has seen just about everything. She was on the field about as quick as could be. She knew that something was up, and we mentioned a couple of the other situations where Eagle football had gone through that since, I want to say, 2013. We talked about the James Dean situation, which happened at Paulson Stadium. But to see him get immobilized, but ultimately off the field, and then getting that good news, game-wise, that's where it swung, because Georgia State's offense looked a lot different, and then with CJ not in there up front, the Eagles are in the 3-4, but he oftentimes is steering the interior of that offensive line, and every broadcaster we talk to, every coaching staff has brought up, man, that number 0. He does so much up front, and this year the stats were coming, the sacks, the tackles for loss. When he left the game, it just became a situation where the Eagles were getting pounded
through the center of the defense. They didn't miss a lot of tackles, which was very good from the previous 2 weeks. But what happened was, whether it was Granger, Gregg, or Williams, they were getting second, third level before they were even seeing contact.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was in the fourth quarter when State needed to clinch that final drive, and Williams ended up finishing it with a 23-yard run. So I would hope that scheme-wise, assuming that CJ is out for an extended amount of time, you're going to see a lot of Parker Devine, a lot of Kieran Smith, but you can maybe adjust how the other 10 are working to help that area while at the same time continuing to improve gradually with the pass defense, because Granger threw for barely 140. So from that standpoint, Georgia Southern was great. Best pass defense of the year. You had the pass breakup from Bembry on the deep ball to Pinckney, which helped save the game in the fourth quarter. So there were a lot of good things that Georgia Southern did. But there are no moral victories. It is still the third straight loss. It is 2-6. And the schedule does not get easy.
No. Not by
Especially
any
this
stretch of
week.
the imagination.
Especially this week when the highest-ranked team in Paulson Stadium history is going to be here, and they're 7-1.
Before we dive into Coastal Carolina, got to put the Georgia State game to bed. Just going to open it up. Final thoughts, Georgia Southern, Georgia State.
You know, it felt like it was a game that Georgia Southern should have won because of all that they did that was very good. But you could understand why they didn't win it, because the issues that have been there continued to be there, and they showed up even more at really inopportune times. Having all of those drives in Georgia State territory not end in points, we made the comment that 7 consecutive drives of at least 6 plays, only scoring 7 points because of 2 interceptions in the red zone, because of getting stopped 4th and goal at the 1-yard line on what I'm not sure if it was a miscommunication, but it looked like it was going to be an option. State broke through. Tomlin was, do I go wide? Do I go tight? It just didn't work out. And then defensively losing 2 more starters, adding to the very long list that's already been created with guys out. They just lost the ability to be consistent. Yeah, next man up is a really nice thought, but when it's guy after guy after guy, and in instances, Georgia Southern is down to its number 3 defensive line, your number 3 corners, your number 3 linebackers, there's only so much that you can deal with before there is going to be a natural drop-off. Be that as it may, it still took until under 30 seconds left that Georgia State won the football game. So they're starting... How should I put this? They're starting to not look at everything as eventually it's going to be a negative. They're starting to stack some positivity, but like I mentioned earlier with that Thanksgiving meal, if you do the cooking, eat the meal. You've done all the work, reap the rewards, eat the meal, start stacking some wins.
Ended up being a 21-14 victory for Georgia State. Georgia Southern falls to 2-6, 1-4 in conference play on the season. And they look ahead to the number 21 ranked Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, and who better to tell us about Coastal Carolina than Joe Cashion, the voice of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, who looks like he's at the beach himself.
Of course he is.
Of course. Beautiful weather here today, boys.
Joe, appreciate you joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on to talk about this weekend's game.
Give us just kind of the vibe around what Coastal Carolina has been like really for the last 2 years. We caught up last year whenever Georgia Southern was there, but you were without Grayson Mccall that day. What has the last 2 years been like for this program?
It's been a wild ride. You know, I mean, when last year happened, kind of happened when no one really expected it, quite frankly. I mean, you're coming off a couple of 5-7 seasons, and then all of a sudden you go 11-1, and you win a share of the conference championship, and you go to your first bowl game, and you get all sorts of accolades, and you're in the top 20, and everybody in the country's talking about you and mullets and this sort of thing. And it was just last year was crazy. And I guess the question this year was, were we a one-hit wonder last season? Well, so far, no. I mean, we're 7-1, and we're still pretty good, and people are still feeling pretty good about themselves. We still have one of the best quarterbacks, one of the best players in all of college football, and Grayson Mccall. And we lost a tough one a couple of weeks ago. Everyone on that trip went in expecting to win. And for about one quarter, it looked an awful lot like that's what we were going to do. And then things settled down. They're a pretty good team on their field and their place. Last second loss, but we're able to bounce back from that. beating, I think, is a better than advertised Troy football team. I think they're a little bit better than maybe what their record shows. But, 7-1, still carrying on the momentum from last season, and looking forward to trying to get our first win in Statesboro.
You know that anytime you do an interview talking about Coastal Carolina, you're going to be talking about Grayson Mccall. Like we talked about, he didn't play against Georgia Southern last year, was a little bit banged up, the only game he didn't play in a year ago. But what has he grown even from last year into this year? What does he mean to this team?
Well, he means everything, honestly, on offense. I mean, he's the straw that stirs the drink. You watch us play and you just watch us watch him make the plays that he makes. I mean, the way that he can move around and get away from pressure and, take a bad play and turn it into a 74-yard touchdown like he did in Appalachian, a play that's breaking down. Average guys just can't do that. I mean, good quarterbacks don't do what he can do. His completion percentage has gone up. The efficiency rating, yards per attempt. I mean, he leads the FBS in a number of categories. Quarterback rating is off the charts. I mean, you take him out of this thing and we're still pretty good, but we're not, it's just like from there to there. I know you can't see this, what I'm doing in the hand, but I mean, it's like one level to a next level up, with him. And he just takes us to that level. So he means everything to this football team. And he takes a beating now. And he took a beating the other night against Troy. Took several hits out there. He's running the ball a little bit more the last several weeks because I think we kind of need that because we've been banged up at the running back position a little bit. So he needs to run the ball a little bit more. But just look at the numbers and look at what he does out there, and he's everything for this team. I
want to go back to something you mentioned a little bit earlier because Coastal, the first 3 years in the league, 2-6 in conference, 2-6 in conference, 2-6 in conference, and now a team that is one of the best in the country. And what you said typifies that mindset. It's an expectation to win. It's not going in for the effort. You guys have become the program that is expecting to win wherever you're going.
I think Jamie Chadwell is the reason for all of that too. I think him being hired by Coach Moglia, prior to the 2017 season, and then him being thrust into that interim role, when Coach was sick and had to take a sabbatical. And then when Jamie got elevated to the head coach permanently in 2019, he has brought a mentality and a way of doing things and a staff and an infrastructure and an attitude that has taken that program from what you just said, the 2-6 conference years, when we struggled and we would shuffle off to someplace in the Sun Belt, take our butt whipping and go on home. Those days are over. And I think that is all attributable to what Jamie has done and his mindset and what he's done in Conway. And, this being his 5th season now here with us.
I saw an article earlier today, I think came out a couple of weeks ago, talking about how there's a lot of guys on this team that are the leaders of this group that came in when this team was still an FCS program and not highly recruited by any stretch of the imagination, whether it be Trey Carter, Silas Kelly, different guys. What is that mentality around this team of everybody counted us out, whether it was when we were recruited, when we were back to 2-6, and now being able to do what this team has done?
Yeah, I mean, you go back to the Trey Carters, the Silas Kellys, the CJ Brewers, guys that played, that came in that 2016 class as we were making that transition. I mean, Silas Kelly and CJ Brewer played the very first time we were at Arkansas State in 2017, our first year of FBS. I mean, so they saw it. They saw the struggles. They saw what happened in that 3-9 season, and we've got a number of super seniors on our team, that came in and came in those years when we were making the transition. And they saw how tough it was. They saw what the level of competition was like, as opposed to what it used to be at the FCS level. Then you step up to 85 and you get into the Sun Belt Conference and you go play teams like a Georgia Southern, like a Troy, like a Louisiana, like an Arkansas State, teams like that, Appalachian, of course. You go play those kinds of teams and you get whipped. You figure out real quick that you got to get better. You got to work harder. You got to get better. You got to do things better. And those guys have been around and they know what it was like then. And having them lead us to where we are now has been invaluable.
It just seems like it's been such a boost for not only the football program, not only athletics, but it just seems the whole university is benefiting from this wave of positivity and all the national attention. You announced that you're building the indoor here soon. I think soccer's getting a new complex as well. So there's just so much that's going on up there that's not necessarily just what's going on the surf turf.
Absolutely right. There is a lot of momentum on the campus, as you mentioned, athletically. And we had that big donation to where all the facilities are going to be stepped up, the indoor facility, like you talked about, the soccer stadium, all that kind of stuff. It bleeds over to academics too. I mean, people know the logo. I mean, people know from what they saw last season. We filled a void last year, when some of these other big conferences, the Power 5 conferences, a couple of them didn't play. And so they had to find storylines, and the way that we played, we were able to step into that void, step into the breach and win and have fun doing it. And I got a lot of people's attention. And again, not just for football, it just kind of bleeds over into other things. And they know that logo again, and they know things are going on in Conway. And it's a lot of momentum right now.
Look, for as much as you guys were on national TV last year, if somebody didn't know what a Chanticleer was after last year, they're never going to know what a Chanticleer is.
Well, you'd still be surprised at the people who still can't figure out how to pronounce it. And we even put out videos on that thing. Hey, this is how you pronounce Chanticleer. It ain't the chants. It ain't the chandeliers. I've heard all of that nonsense. You still get it out there.
Take us into this offense. So many different weapons, and you return so many guys. 9 offensive starters back from a year ago. But Jayvon Hiley, Isaiah Likely, Shamari Jones, so many different guys that you've known year after year and just keep on getting better.
They really do, Colin. And again, we've talked about Grayson already, but Jayvon Hiley's having a fantastic year. In fact, he just set the school record for most, career 100-yard receiving games the other night with a big night against Troy. I mean, he's having a big season. Caught 65 balls last year. Think he'll play at the next level. Isaiah Likely, tied for, I think, the nation's lead right now, touchdowns for tight ends. I mean, and that guy had a monster. He had a career against Arkansas State a couple of weeks ago. A 99-yard touchdown pass for a tight end, even though he's more of a tight end / wide receiver kind of guy. He's got that kind of foot speed, but he is definitely a guy that I think will play on Sunday. Big time prospect for the next level is Isaiah Likely. And then Shamari Jones, Coach talked a little bit. It was either in his press conference, or it might have been on our radio show last week about, how Shamari came in last season and he was kind of trying to find his way along, and whether this was the right place for him or not, he wasn't sure, but he stuck it out. And man, is he having a big time year. He missed a couple of games for us, but he's been big for us these last couple that we played. And of course, Reese White, he got a little banged up the other night. He was our leading rusher going into the Troy game. He's got speed, pretty good hands, and he does a lot of good things for us too. And a young kid that I really, really like and is going to come on and be something for us is Braden Bennett. Yeah. He was a track star in high school, and he caught that wheel the other night against Troy. Took it for 71-yard score. That kid's going to be a good one by the time it's all said and done. But I mean, there are a lot of experienced skill guys on offense at Grayson is the thing that makes it go, but there are a lot of other weapons out there that help it go too.
And that's what I was going to ask you about, because with C.J. Marable being such a valuable receiver out of the backfield, no running back in the league had more catches than him last year. Who was going to make up for it? I know Shamari only has 1 catch, but when you could have somebody that can work just like a slot, but also play running back and catch a long touchdown against Troy, that void's been filled. He's been impressive.
That's a great point you make, Danny. And I really think in the Appalachian State game, we needed that. We needed somebody like that to kind of get some bodies out of the box, because that's kind of what App was doing. Marable hurt them last year in the pass game. We got them a couple of times in the passing game just because he could go out, catch the ball on the run. He could be vertical and horizontal too. But we've got guys that are slowly getting into that kind of role and are becoming those kinds of C.J. Marable-like players.
You talk about the Troy game a week ago, got the victory over the Trojans, 35-28, but late in that ball game, you're up with 4th down, about 3 minutes to go. You're lined up to punt it away. Were you as surprised as everybody else that C.J. Brewer took that ball and ran for a 1st down?
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, yeah.
Man. Appreciate you. Just making sure we were on the same page here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't need to – I was not expecting that. I mean, I felt pretty good even if we were going to punt it away right there. I also felt like if Troy went down and scored, they were going to go for 2 and go for the win. That's kind of what I was thinking. And they were going to have, like you just mentioned, a couple of minutes on the clock. And then all of a sudden, boom, they snap it to CJ, and here he goes and picks up a block or 2 and rambles his way for a 1st down. And I thought, man, that's Jamie Chadwell right there. He said no risk it, no biscuit in his post game. That's on the call sheet. So, you got to play to win. Roll the dice, see what happens.
JV even said though that CJ missed the hole when he had to break a tackle to get the first down.
Yep, he sure did. Yeah, that's and I'll tell you in all honesty too. Jamie has said that CJ would be a great NFL fullback if he chose to do that. I think he's got a potential to be a D lineman at the next level, but I think CJ has phenomenal hands. He may have the best hands of anybody on the team. Quite frankly, he's got phenomenal hands and he's strong as an ox. He caught a touchdown pass against Kansas last season. Yeah. So he is he is a good athlete all the way around. And when they snapped it to him and he took off, I thought, oh boy, here we go.
We talked about 9 returning offensive starters. You've got 10 returning defensive starters. What's the biggest part of what that defense has looked like in the Black Swarm of 2021?
It's a little bit of a different kind of look this year without Teron Jackson. We've tried to plug a few guys in over there on that side. It's been a little bit of a different look, but I mean, again, it's kind of, want to get to the ball fast. I think our second level is probably the best part of that defense when you're talking about Enoch Maconzo and Teddy Gallagher and Silas Kelly, our leading tackler. And then, of course, Jeff Gunner, who I think, Jamie mentioned he thought he had his best game of the season. Jeff did against Troy the other night. I mean, he was a big time factor, a couple of sacks in that ball game, fumble recovery, just generally caused a lot of havoc out there, and we've been pretty good and pretty consistent all year long. Now App got us with some stuff, but they're going to do that to a lot of teams. But overall, I think we have played well. Not having Teron has been a little bit different because he was a difference maker. I mean, you had to account for him, which kind of freed up some other guys. We hadn't really had anybody quite step into that dominant role at that DN spot, but hopefully we will at some point.
You guys, the first month of the season, it didn't seem like there were any tests whatsoever. You just got to a point where you built such a big lead on whether it was the Citadel, whether it was UMass, whether it was ULM, and oftentimes guys weren't playing but maybe a few snaps into the third quarter. But the last 2 weeks, very competitive games with having to go to Boone, losing on the final play of the game on the field goal. But even last week against Troy, you built a couple score lead, but they came back to make it 7 points, and they felt the need to fake the punt in the fourth quarter just to make sure they secured the football and the victory. So going from dominating people to having to grind wins out, what was that like, seeing this team having to basically step up to a moment that they really hadn't seen outside of Buffalo the first few games of the season?
To me, it says a lot because, like you mentioned, the first 6 ball games, I mean, we were really only tested once, and that was at Buffalo. And that was a game that kind of went down to the wire. I mean, we had a double-digit lead. They went and scored with a couple of minutes left, and then we were able to grind out the last couple of minutes, and then they never saw the ball back. But I think it says a lot about where this program is in terms of, the mentality. Where is this team mentally? Where's the fortitude there? When things start happening that we might not expect, if we're in a battle, if we're in a grind, where are our kids going to go? What are they going to do? Are they going to step up and make a play and battle? And they've done that. Or are they going to, turn tail and do something else? But our kids battled. The App game was, we got off to such a great start. And then to App's credit, they were able to turn things around there at the end of the first quarter. And then we found ourselves in a battle. And it's still, I don't think we played our best up there, but I do want to give them some credit. It still came down to the last play. And then last week, that Troy team just wouldn't go away. I mean, you watched it, you saw it. They wouldn't go away. And much credit to them. They hung in there and battled. So, I kind of knew that the schedule, when you looked at it before the season started, that it would be a backloaded kind of thing. I felt like that we had a chance to make some hay and get off to a good start in the first 6 games. Our last 6 games where we were going to see, where the rubber met the road, so to speak. What would our medal look like, when we were going to get tested? And we know that we're going to get tested. We'll get tested Saturday, and then we'll get tested the last few weeks of the season too.
What has it been like not playing on Saturday for a month?
Oh.
You got him.
Well, you don't have enough time in this podcast for me to tell you about all these travels. I will say that to be on national television is a blessing. I don't want to overlook that. I mean, for us to be on national TV, if we have to play on a Wednesday or a Thursday night, I'll take that, as opposed to, no one's ever heard of you. I will take that. But what I will also say is the travel piece Coming back from Arkansas State on a Thursday night, when you get back to Memphis around 1 o'clock in the morning and you literally touch down in Myrtle Beach at 4 a.m. Oh. That's a grind, that's a grind. And then Appalachian State the same way, and then having the late game against Troy on a Thursday night. I mean, but still, I don't want to sit here and say, it's great to have the opportunities to showcase our program in a national, in front of a national TV audience like that. It is a tough thing. But I'll tell you this too. Jamie and I were texting. I said, Coach, it'd be great to get back to Saturday football. He said, what are you talking about? So we're happy to be back to Saturdays, for much of the rest of. We still have one more Friday game coming up against South Al, but it'll be nice to play Saturday football.
You talked about it a little bit earlier with Jamie Chadwell taking over and really bringing a new energy and kind of attitude to this team. Everybody has seen what the post-game celebrations look like, but the thing that Danny and I have talked about, you see the post-game celebrations and how they go crazy, but on the field, it's very direct, it's very coordinated. You don't see a whole lot of that on the field that just goes haywire.
No, you don't. And again, I think that goes back to what Jamie has been able to instill. I mean, we are pretty disciplined on the field. Now, things may look a little crazy and haywire, like you're talking about in the locker room, and they do. And that's kids having fun. But I also think that you have to draw a line and say, look, when we step out on the field, this is business. Now, you can't lose your head. You can't lose your mind. You can't do stupid things. You can't commit penalties, which you're going to hurt. You can't take a shot at somebody. You got to practice ball security. You don't want to get a dumb penalty for celebrating. And we had a couple of those early, even though I'm not real sure that some of those were deserved. I thought a couple of those were kind of crazy. But, yeah, I mean, hey, go do what you got to do on the field. Get out between those lines and take care of business. And, hey, you get a win, we'll go sing the victory song, and we'll have some sort of crazy celebration that Coach Scott or whoever has concocted to go in there and then have a good time. So I think it says a lot to the discipline of being able to do one thing in the locker room while taking care of business on the field.
You've been with this radio crew ever since the program was recreated, going from the sidelines and then up to the booth. You were here in 2006 for what was a pretty wild game. I know Jerome Simpson went nuts at Paulson Stadium that night, but then 2 years ago here, we played one overtime, then we played another overtime, and we liked the rain in the game that day, so we decided to play a third overtime. Ultimately, it ends up with a Georgia Southern victory. So that means you're 0-2 all-time against Paulson. For a team that doesn't seem to need a whole lot of motivation, I would think that may factor in a little bit in trying to get to 8-1.
I have to think so too, Danny. I mean, I still think about that game, and I know Jamie still talks about that game. Because,
he's still sick from that game. He had a cold for 2 weeks. I remember him talking about that.
It was just here we are in that first overtime. First of all, we dodged a bullet at the end of regulation when Tyler Bass, who can kick a ball about a mile, missed the field goal that would have won it. I'm like, whew, we're going to get a reprieve. And then we get into overtime, and we take the lead, and then it's and we got Georgia Southern 4th and 5. I'm like, we stop this play, it's over. And they go for the downs, and they hit it. The officials, first of all, they said incomplete. And I was like, nah, I think he caught that ball. That happened right in front of Bergen.
Bergen was standing right there. He saw the whole thing.
Yeah, he saw the whole thing. And then I give Southern credit for going for the downs on that when they hit it. And then they came right around and did the same thing in the second overtime. But we stopped that play. I mean, and everything else plays out the rest of the way. We got 6 wins, and we're bowl eligible. They talked about that a lot in the offseason. One play. We stop a play, and everything else plays out the same. Hey, we're going to a bowl. It didn't work out for us. So, yeah, I would have to think. And when I get with Jamie on the radio show this week, I imagine we'll probably talk about that as far as motivation, to finally try to go get a win over in Paulson, see what happens.
You talked about how you've been with that program ever since it got re-brought back. What does being able to see what Coastal football is now like for you, being able to see everything that you have?
It's pretty amazing, Colin, because when we first started in 2003, we were a Big South team. We were just starting out, obviously, a lot of young kids. I mean, the stadium, you wouldn't even recognize the stadium now as to what it looked like then. Honestly, I don't think anybody at that time dreamt of where, just 20 years down the road things would be, honestly. And we had good years at the FCS level, to start with Coach Bennett. And we kind of, hit a lull there for a few years. And next thing you know, here comes, Coach Moglia, and, people scratching their heads like, how is this guy going to win? I mean, he hadn't coached college football in 30 years. And the next thing you know, we start winning a lot at the FCS level. And then all of a sudden, a few years ago, Sun Belt, makes a few phone calls. Next thing you know, we're going to FBS. We're kind of like, huh? Really? And here we are now in the top 20 of big time college football. And I wouldn't have when Matt hired me in 2003, I wouldn't have thought this soon. But things can happen. You get the right people in place, you get the right attitude, get some momentum. Things can happen.
You and I have talked about it, and you and Danny have talked about it, that especially ever since Coastal joined the Sun Belt, and it kind of goes across a lot of sports, that I'm not going to say there's a full-fledged rivalry between Coastal and Georgia Southern, but there's a lot of really good games between these two through a lot of sports, and the geographic footprint kind of fits too. You've seen the action before the Sun Belt Conference transfer over into the Sun Belt.
Careful, we might have Cajun people listening to this.
Yeah. They'll get.
I hope they are the Cajun people. They're still mad, aren't they?
But what is this? What is this series really
We beat them on their field, and they're still mad.
But what does this series with Coastal and Georgia Southern mean to the Coastal people?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I think our people want that rivalry there. I don't know that we've had that, that flashpoint yet to where things just, kind of like what we were just talking about with the Louisiana people, and then the App people got.
Yeah, I think that's there with y'all.
Year. Yeah. But I think baseball has been as good as anything. Honestly, I think there have been some, big time Sun Belt baseball championship, games between the two. And I think that, and some great series, some great games there. Maybe baseball can lead the way in terms of what Georgia Southern and Coastal can do to develop, that kind of geographic rivalry, we're awfully close to each other. I would like to see, our fans come over in droves to Statesboro, just like I'd love to see Georgia Southern people come to Conway. I'm not sure there's been that flashpoint necessarily in football yet, but maybe it's coming. I don't know.
Joe, really appreciate you taking some time with us. Looking forward to catching up on Saturday, and have a safe trip down to Statesboro.
All right, Danny and Colin, thanks for having me on. Look forward to coming over this week.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Joe. Once again, that is Joe Cashion, the voice of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, one of the best people we get to hang out with on the road, whether it's coming to Statesboro. Absolutely one of the best guys in this league.
One, I think we could have talked to him all night. And two, I knew at some point that Louisiana was going to come up.
Oh,
and I knew we were towards the end. I thought, okay, we got to get this in there somehow because they love it just as much as the Cajuns hate it.
Oh, yeah. That's what I got to talk to Craig Melanson tomorrow, and I guarantee you Coastal Carolina is going to come up.
Look, it was a co-championship. There was no on-field winner for the Sun Belt last year because of COVID. That game was called off, but
Correct.
Coastal claims a little bit more of it because they won at Cajun Field. They kicked the game-winning field goal earlier on in the season, so it's nice that they can throw barbs at each other.
And boy, do they.
And the only way they're going to meet this year is if they get some help, the Chanticleers, from somebody in this league to beat App State, which the Eagles could.
I was about to say, wouldn't that be nice to be us?
Could provide some help there on the Saturday after Thanksgiving, but we'll get to that when we get to that.
But it's Coastal Carolina, 7-1 on the year, 3-1 in conference play. There's no other way to say it. This team is really, really good. They're 21 in the country for a reason. It's very rare that you have a G5 team lose a game and stay in the top 25. They've been in the top 25 for 21 consecutive weeks.
Yeah,
just to put that in perspective, in the 2020s, if they stay ranked for another week, they are now tied with the number of times that Clemson is ranked in the 2020s.
Jeez. Yeah, because
Clemson was ranked for 22 weeks in the 2020s. One more week and Coastal Carolina will be ranked 22 times in the 2020s.
I thought that there would have to be a little bit of a drop-off. Even with so many guys back, I'm thinking they can't possibly go 11-1 again.
Yeah.
They can't have another undefeated season. They can't. Well, they're not going to have an undefeated season, but I think that this team is better than last year's team is.
Yeah, I do
think
too.
they're better.
The only scuffle on their schedule, again, Appalachian State with a last-second field goal by Chandler State and 30-27, the victory for App State. And that was a really good game.
Yeah.
Again, a Wednesday night game up atop the mountain. This will be the first time since October the 2nd when they played ULM that they will play on Saturday. Just the fourth time they play on Saturday all season this year so far. And we talked about it with Joe. You've got a lot of national attention on this team, so they're going to be the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday game of the week. But it's weird to say you've got to get back into your groove of playing on Saturday.
There's probably a thank you that a lot of this league owes to Coastal because a lot of the attention that the Sun Belt is getting, has gotten, and is going to continue to get, why the league is expanding, is a great deal to do with Coastal going 11-0 in the regular season last year and being in the top 25 for now 21 straight weeks. Louisiana's played their part. App's played their part. A lot of other teams have done a little bit, but I don't know if anybody has done more than Coastal has since the start of last year to elevate the profile of this conference in terms of football.
No, and it's crazy to think the beginning of the 2020 season, the beginning of the year that they went 11-0 in the regular season, they were picked last in the Sun Belt. That shows you what preseason polls mean. But they were picked last in the Sun Belt. They go 11-0 and become America's darling.
Here's what blows my mind a little bit about their offense. Like Grayson Mccall earns everything that is said about him, and I'm looking forward to watching him on Saturday.
Yeah.
We did not get that luxury last year. Granted, backup quarterback Fred Payton threw 3 touchdowns, beat the Eagles. He's not there anymore. He transferred to Mercer. It's going to be maybe the first time in 3 years that Georgia Southern has not faced Coastal's backup, because in 19 when they came down here, Payton was the starter, didn't play because of a shoulder injury. Bryce Carpenter, who is still there, he's the backup now, came in, almost led them to that victory. 3 overtimes later, Georgia Southern pulled it out 30-27. But this offense, scoring 44 points a game, which is good in its own right. It's third in the country. Time of possession-wise, they keep it almost 32 minutes a game. So you're thinking, how can they score that many points but have the ball that long? They're only averaging about 8 or 9 drives a game because it's a variant of the option. They're trying to possess the football. They don't miss.
No.
And I don't know if I can put it any more simply. They don't miss. They score when they have the ball. That's it.
They're the most efficient offense I've seen.
Literally in the country, they're the number one offense efficiency-wise in this country. We're not just saying it for hyperbole. They are literally the number one efficient offense in this country as we sit here doing this podcast.
That's insane. And we talk about how Grayson Mccall makes us go, and this is somebody that, when you dive into his story, he was a 2-star recruit. He was rated 2,889th player in his class.
You want to know what his one FBS offer was?
You're going to tell me?
Army. He ran an offense kind of like this, just outside of Charlotte. Coastal kept him under their hat for a year, and then going into last year, okay, who was going to be the starter? Was it going to be Payton? Was it going to be Carpenter? No.
Nope, it's this McCall kid.
It was going to be McCall, and what's he do against Kansas? 5 touchdowns, player of the week. Huh. Well, Coastal might need some attention this year, and attention they got.
And he's somebody that we talk about Carlton Marshall a lot. We mentioned Roger Carter last week, the tight end for Georgia State. This is somebody that when you're not playing him, this is somebody you root for. Last year he was the Football Writers of America Association most inspirational freshman. That's not just what you do on the field. It's your story. It's what you do off the field to impact not just your community, but kind of college football as a whole. He is somebody that he's worth telling the story.
And now he gets to tell that story because Jamie Chadwell has a policy that freshmen don't speak to the media. So while he's doing all of this last year, no media availability, which there's something to be said for that policy. I can respect a lot because that's, whether you're a redshirt freshman, true freshman or not, that's a lot to handle despite how many successes you are having.
Especially, you think last year he would have probably been on College Game Day. He would have been going through the gauntlet.
Yes, he absolutely would have. But now the team is still doing extremely well, so he's the one that's getting asked for every day. And he's dealing with it. He's still putting up gaudy numbers.
Man, I do not envy the job of Kevin Davis telling everybody and their brother, no, you can't have Grayson Mccall.
If there is one that can handle it, it is Kevin
There's
Davis.
no doubt. Kevin Davis is one of the best, if not the best, sports information person in this conference.
Does a
I
terrific
absolutely
job.
love Kevin.
And it helps McCall when he's on the field. He can throw to maybe the league's best receiver in Jayvon Hiley, definitely the league's best tight end, and might be the country's best tight end.
Yeah.
Isaiah Likely, for 250 pounds, he moves like he's about 150.
Yeah.
He is so light on his feet, but so strong when he makes plays. I'm going to compare him to what Gerald Everett was to South Alabama a few years ago.
Ooh, good call.
Everett looked like he was the best player on the field every week. It was just a matter of could they get him the football. Some weeks they couldn't because South Alabama had quarterback issues in the past.
Yeah.
Coastal doesn't. And when you're a tight end and you have a 99-yard touchdown reception, how does that happen? Because Likely does not run like a tight end. 232 yards and 4 touchdowns against Arkansas State on national television. If he wasn't on a draft board, he was after that game.
Yeah.
Look, we're talking a lot. We're giving Coastal a lot of hype here, but it is earned hype.
And we were a little hesitant last year because when we went to Conway, it was right when all the national spotlight started.
They had just gotten ranked. They were 25th.
They were just ranked. Right. Everybody was starting to take notice. Hey, this Coastal team might be pretty good. Mm-hmm. Last year, not that we were trying to downplay it, we were just trying to be hesitant not to build them up to be the Buffalo Bills. This year, you saw what they did last year. You get to see them as much as you do because they're on the Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday night.
Action.
That's
gonna be starting here soon.
Yeah. This is a team that might be, and there would be no way to kind of compare it. This team might be one of the best in the Sun Belt in the last couple of years.
At this rate, offensively, we haven't gotten to the defense fully yet, but at this rate, the 44 points per game, the more than 500 yards of total offense per game, those would shatter league records.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to maintain that pace, but with the talent that they have, and even though, like he mentioned, they've had some injuries at running back. Shamari Jones is the number one guy right now, missed a couple of weeks because of turf toe, but he had 2 touchdowns against Troy. Reese White is not going to play this week. He was seen on the sidelines on crutches after getting hurt against Troy, and like Joe said, he was the leading rusher going into that game. But Braden Bennett is somebody that he's not going to touch the ball a whole lot in terms of getting carries, but he got a 71-yard touchdown catch. You get him out there in a wheel route, there's not a whole lot of guys in this league that are going to be able to run with him. And oh, by the way, the starting offensive line, all 5 back, the Mighty Mites, the ankle biters. The color guy for Joe, Lane Harris, calls them the groove line.
That's fantastic.
They're not your prototypical FBS offensive line, but App did 2 things that you have to do if you're going to beat them. You've got to shut down the run. That means you've got to maintain physicality and manhandle them up front. App did. You also have to get McCall off his timing because this offense is very precise and timing-based, especially when he's throwing the ball to Jayvon Hiley. They love those speed outs, and oftentimes you're getting somewhere between 10 and 15 yards, which is why they can maintain long drives. They don't necessarily gear themselves towards chunk plays because Hiley, while he can break big plays, and he has the ability to do so, he's a 10 to 15-yard catch kind of guy, which is just fine. But if you don't get McCall off his timing and you don't maintain 4 quarters worth of physicality against their offensive line, it's going to be a long day. That's what you got to do.
At the end of the day, to wrap up their offense, they have the number 1, number 2, and number 3 in the Sun Belt in yards per catch. Hiley's number 1, Cameron Brown is number 2, Isaiah Likely is number 3. So not just one of the top 3, they have all of the top 3.
And look, some of that is because the out-of-conference, it was soft. Okay? Yeah. They beat the Citadel. They beat UMass. Look, we know UMass. We saw them last year. UMass is a team that has been struggling for a long time. That was going to be an easy win. They were tested by Buffalo, and Buffalo did about everything right. They just scored field goals instead of touchdowns. If they would have gotten touchdowns, they would have beaten Coastal because they were frustrating McCall. They knocked him out of that game for a little bit. but unfortunately, they couldn't sustain it for a full game, which is what you have to do if you're going to take this team down.
Quickly on the defense, you look up the middle and the middle linebackers, Teddy Gallagher and Silas Kelly. They call them the mayor and the sheriff, respectively, both captains for this Coastal Carolina team. Teddy Gallagher loves playing Georgia Southern, has set season highs in each of the last 2 years as far as tackles are concerned.
He sure do.
But this is... I can't find any other words to say it. This is a really, really good defense.
There are two areas you can get them on defense. They've had some issue at safety. Braden Bennett is a guy that started the first 4 games of the season. He hasn't played since. Not necessarily an injury concern, but Shaheem Watkins is somebody that stepped in, and he's been just a little bit better than I think Matt's was, and something to monitor there. Chad Stagg's the D coordinator, who is one of the best assistant coaches anywhere. He was the linebackers coach up until this year. Now he's coaching safeties. And that's an interesting parallel because of the turnover that has existed. Now, a guy like Alex Spillum has been a starter for the last 3 years. He's also really good in special teams. He had a block punt of that victory over Kansas. So it's safety. It's a little bit hit or miss. App exploited them, and that's how App came back from 14 down, ended up winning the game. They aren't great defending the run. Now, 150 a game is still 4th in the league. They aren't great against the run. They were against Georgia Southern, though, last year. They had a really good plan. They shut down Georgia Southern's option. They're better at the pass than they are the run. They're number 1 in the league in pass defense, and now that the Eagles have been throwing it more, that might be something we have to consider, because the Eagles are throwing it 23 times a game this year, unfortunately. If you can establish the run with Logan Wright, with Gerald Green, with Jalen White, maintain time of possession. Because Coastal needs to have the football to grind out long drives that end in touchdowns. If Georgia Southern could take that game plan and do it a little bit better, that's going to be a big key.
One final thing on Coastal Carolina. I got to touch on the special teams just for the sheer fact they have blocked 3 punts on the season. 2 of them have been returned for a touchdown.
Yep.
It's a special teams unit that not just on the punt return, but every part of their special team seems to be clicking on a lot of cylinders.
And it's a lot of different guys. You know that Jeffrey Gunter's really good at kick blocking, and they had a guy, Marcus Williamson, their old outside linebacker, was really good at blocking kicks. So it seems like it's always somebody special teams-wise, but they've spread out their 4 blocks this year over 4 different players. They blocked a field goal earlier this year as well. And then the kicker, Massimo Biscardi, school record in terms of field goals made. He's missed a couple of games, though, because of a hip issue. He's fine, but they've had to experiment. They used 2 different kickers, and the 2 that they used almost cost them that Buffalo game. So they couldn't get him back soon enough, and he is as steady as there is in the league, 3-time All-Conference. If it comes down to it, he can win a game just like he did at Louisiana last year.
Coastal Carolina, number 21 in the country, 7-1, 3-1 in Sunbelt Conference play. Will be at Allen A. Paulson Stadium this weekend. 6 o'clock the kickoff. We'll be on the air at 4 o'clock with the Cutwater Tailgate Show. It is Salute to Service this weekend. I'm going to be honoring all the men and women protecting our country, as well as going to have the Student Athlete Advisory Committee hosting a food drive on Saturday at Gate 7, beginning at 4 o'clock is where they will have student athletes and staff manning Gate 7 at Paulson Stadium. So bring any canned foods, non-perishable items, and it'll go to help the Statesboro Food Bank coming up this weekend.
Final conference home game, still BYU on the schedule in a couple of weeks, but in terms of a Sun Belt opponent, this is the final one that's going to be at Paulson this year as we're starting to get towards the end.
Going to be a fun one this weekend to catch up with Joe Cashion and the rest of the Chanticleers Sports Network. Got a whole host of guys over there.
It's a rooster.
Still a Chanticleer.
It is. It is a beach chicken, as some have said.
Sea chicken, green chicken. There's a lot of them.
Surf turf, teal team.
Whatever you want to call it. It'll be here at 6 o'clock to kick off on Saturday. We're on the air at the Cutwater Tailgate Show at 4 o'clock. Until this weekend, for the voice of the Eagles, Danny Reed, this is Colin Lacy saying so long, everybody.
You've been listening to Inside Eagle Nation, powered by Learfield, the official podcast of Georgia Southern Athletics.